Howdy champs, my name is Mohit and welcome to part 2 people. We were talking about CSS3 border image property, and I'd told you in the last part that we'll be tackling 2 more images so that quite clearly we'll understand the concept pretty well. Okay, let me bring up the local site folder. The 2 images that we've already worked upon is this 100 by 101 px image. As you can notice, the size is pretty small, people, 7.96 KB. So it's actually very light on the code. It loads pretty snappy. And this was the other image that we had worked with, and as you can very clearly see, the size is just 38.3 KBs. Right. The next image that I would be working on is this one. This will although I told you that we'll not get into the technicalities, into the details of how the code is actually created, but this will give you a fair idea of what creates the code, how the code is actually created. And this one will be the last image that we'll work upon, and you'll get a very clear idea how border images, how images can be used as borders using the CSS3 property border image. Alright, so let's begin. Alrighty. Let's bring up the browser, and as always, let's open up the URL border-image.com. So that's border-image.com. Right. By default, this image is presented, and I'm going to browse for my own image, which is basically the same image. Right. Now, people, by default, it's the X offset is, the top offset is set at 27, the slicing is set at 27, the bottom slicing is actually set at 27, the left and the right slicing or the offsets have been set at 27, which is exactly what I want. I don't need to alter it. You see, I don't need to change these red lines from their original positions. They are sitting pretty good. They are perfectly placed. I wouldn't want to change their positions, people. You see, the way they've been sliced ensures that the center cell is completely one single plain color, and the corners are properly captured, the borders are properly captured, as you can very clearly see out here. So I don't need to manipulate these lines like this. You see now that this red line is actually moving as I move the top offset. It's actually pretty well placed. So it's 27 pixels from all the 4 sides, the slicing that is, and that's just perfect. So I don't need to touch it. What I actually need to touch it, and for the first time you'll understand the difference between repeat, round, and stretch. Okay, now this is the preview, the way it is for repeat. Notice these corners, people. Now you see what happens. These cells, out of the 9 cells, these corner cells, 1, 2, 3, and 4, actually form the corners of the border, and these center cells are getting repeated out here. This one is repeated out here, this one is repeated out here, and this one is repeated out here. Notice what happens if I set both of them to, let's use stretch. The moment I say stretch for the vertical repeat, you see this one single diamond like shape is stretched from top to bottom. And if I make it, have the same option for the horizontal repeat too, you see that one single diamond out here is actually repeated from left to right, as it was repeated from top to bottom. Also, there was something I wanted to tell you in part 1, which I'll tell you now. You see that we have dash, mouse dash, dash, webkit dash, dash, o dash, extensions or vendor prefixes or suffixes, prefixes rather, before the border image property. That ensures that it works in Mozilla, WebKit browsers, Chrome and Safari, O for Opera. So basically you need these vendor prefixes for them to work in different browsers. And most modern contemporary browsers don't need this vendor prefixes, in which case we need to have a plain simple vanilla statement border image. Just in case if they need it, they will fall back on the vendor prefixes. Although we have an issue with IE. IE still doesn't support border image property, in which case you can actually use a conditional comment, people. What exactly is a conditional comment? I have 3 or 4 tutorials on this subject. You can actually YouTube search Mohit Manuja plus conditional comments, and you should arrive at them. So there is a workaround that way too for IE. Modern and old versions of IE, we have to use conditional comments and work out something. Okay, so I guess you understand what stretch is. And if I go to round, you see round is better than repeat, especially for the corners. Have a look again. I'm gonna set it back to repeat. See, look at the corners. You know, it's not starting or ending pretty well. You see, although the diamond shape is repeating itself along the x and the y axis, it's not starting properly, it's not ending properly, it's being truncated in half. So you see round is a better option that allows us to, you know, start properly and end properly. So you may have had a fair idea of how, you know, things actually work when you set it to either round or stretch. So let's take up a preview for round. I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to go back out here. I'm going to ensure that I leave the width and the height of the div with an ID of BI. BI stands for border image, and I'm going to replace the rest of the code. So border style solid and border width 27. 27 should equal the slicing height. Slicing from top, left, right, and bottom all equal 27 in our example. And let's have a look up in the browser of how things look like right now after saving the changes to our HTML document. So this is how the round variation looks like. Nothing but quality at qualitylessons.net. Don't doubt that. All right, so let's get back to border image generator, and let's check out how things look like if they are actually stretched. Let's look it up in the browser. So stretched on both the x and the y axis, and I'm going to replace everything barring the width and the height of the division. Okay, so if you notice again in the opening closing body tags, we have one single div with the ID of BI, and that's exactly what we are tackling right now. We are inserting the copy paste inside this ID rule, ID BI. All right, let's look it up in the browser how things look like right now. So you see the corners are actually formed by the orange diamond, but the sides are actually formed by the yellow diamond, and it's actually being stretched. As I said, there are certain images which actually allow you to understand the concept of stretch, round, and repeat properly, and this is one such image. Now let's move on to another image, and before that let's quickly take up a preview, a browser preview of repeat 2. Copy the code, get inside Dreamweaver, replace the code, Control V to replace it, take up a browser preview. Alright, see, you see there is some truncation out here, some truncation here, some truncation here. So this truncation might occur if you're actually using repeat, but that doesn't happen if you are using round variation. Nevertheless, let's get back to border image generator editor and browse for the next image. This is a wonderful image, border 4, and this time the slicing is not proper. It's actually set at 27. I need to set it at 13. I think I've already worked out the should be 13 from all the 4 sides. So I'm doing just that. I'm using my keyboard for fine-tuning. 13 for the last one too, for the left offset. Yep, so I've set it to 13. Now people, have a look at the preview. No matter whether I set it to repeat or round, it's just the same. The image is such, or stretch. You see, there's absolutely no difference to the preview. The only thing that actually changes is the code inside here, and that's all that actually changes. So there are certain images which will not, you know, depending on which variation you use, whether you use stretch, round, or repeat, it's just the same. You see the corners of the border is actually formed by these 4 cells, this, and this, and the stretching, rounding, or repeating actually happens from this area, these sides that are being sliced. Let me reiterate, we are slicing the image up in 9 different sections. The corners form the corners of the border. These sides actually form the sides of the border. Depending on whether they are stretched, rounded, or repeated, the output changes. But in this example, it's a straight line, people. It really doesn't matter if you stretch it. Now, these are twin straight lines. So whether you stretch twin straight lines, whether you round straight lines or repeat straight lines, it's actually just the same thing. All right. So I think I actually copied it. Let me do it again. And let's have a look up in the browser. So Control V to paste it after highlighting. And let's preview it up. And this is the way it actually looks. You can be absolutely sure rounding, repeating, or keeping it stretched isn't going to make a difference, because after all, you're affecting these two twin parallel lines, and that's exactly why the preview will not change. So as I said, by understanding or working on these two more images, you have a fair idea of how border images actually work in CSS3. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you liked it too. I hope you'll thumb it up. I hope you'll sub. And I'll also hope that you'll keep coming back for more and more tutorials from me, won't you? You have a good day. Bye-bye. Peace.